while we were married before he did the Buddhism thing. He was talking a lot about how he just believed the world was a giant simulation, that nothing was real and no one was real. And it was at that point where I was like, I cannot even deal with this shit no more. I just remember being like, it was just, I felt, yeah, anyway. Hey, what's good, YouTube fam? It's your girl Grace back for my series on what is verbal abuse. Are you experiencing it and do you need help? My channel is about all things Black womanhood, mental health, and verbal abuse because we all just out here trying to survive, sis. And I'm just here to help you out in your journey. Just to be clear, I'm not a counselor. I am someone who has survived verbal abuse at a very severe level, survived narcissistic abuse at a very severe level. I was verbally abused by my brother growing up, which I think conditioned me to get into a verbally abusive marriage. And I was also very severely sexually abused by my father growing up. And I would like to say that I have survived all of those things, even though I deal with many things, as you'll see. If you follow along on my mental health vlogs, you can see that I have some struggles because of everything I've been through, but I am convinced that taking care of my mental health and helping others to take care of their mental health is a part of what we need to do. I am also available for one-on-ones if you would like to do a one-on-one with me as a survivor, again, not as a coach or therapist. Please send me email at outheretrynasurvive@gmail.com. Today I want to talk a little bit more about the behavior, the 15 or so verbally abusive behaviors and what they look like and what they look like for me, so you can get more of a sense of, is this something I'm experiencing, and just more of a sense of, what does verbal abuse actually look like? Before I get into that, I wanted to get into some signs and things that the verbally abusive relationship, which I've been using as a guide for this because I wanted to be clear that Patricia Evans has 25 years experience and I do not know more than her, and I've learned so much from her. And I've listened to some podcasts with her and things like that. But one thing that she talked about in here that I thought was really interesting was about how verbal abusers, when they verbal abuse in a relationship, it usually will extend out in other ways too, to people groups. And I thought that was so interesting because once my ex and I got married, he started becoming more and more aggressively conservative in very bullying ways. So he would be making judgments about people groups. He would say bad things, racist things about people groups, including Black women. As I've mentioned before, he himself is a Black man. I myself am a Black woman. So it seemed like maybe he's had license, but it wasn't cute and funny. Like, oh, Black women, are kind of loud, which is even that. Some people say that as a joke. If Black women say that about Black women, I'm cool with it, like in some ways. But the way he was saying, Black women are responsible for. But he was also talking poorly about other people groups. I'm not going to say because I just don't want, I think it's cruel. He said a lot of cruel things about a lot of marginalized people groups, as you can imagine who they are, especially with him becoming more conservative, riding Trump's dick. I remember being very disgusted by that. And to me, I didn't think, oh, that means he's a verbal abuser. But he always assigned motives to those groups as well. For example, well, the gays just want to turn everybody gay. If you remember what I said in my last video, that's something that verbal abusers say a lot. You just want to start a fight. You just wanted this. You just wanted that. It's called defining behavior, and it's one of the hallmarks of verbal abusers. So if a verbal abuser in your life is telling you, if someone is telling you, you just want this, you just want that, anything where they're using a verb, then it's crazy making. It's also impossible for anyone to know what you want or what's in your head without clarity, without literally asking them. So if you notice, a lot of men online, when they make sweeping generalizations, women just want this, women just want that, the gays just want to make everybody gay, is what he said. And it was like, no, I don't think they do. But also, you are literally speaking for an entire group that you know nothing about, and from what I understand, have never been a part of. So how do you know that that's what the gays want? It was just very frustrating because it was one of the areas where it pinged as a red flag for me. Like, and this was after we were married. It felt like, wow, he really is racist and homophobic. And just a lot of things that was really disturbing. But I was trying to understand him and get in his head, but he had already dehumanized several different people groups. And I remember telling my best friend once, like, yeah, he was saying this about Muslims, he was saying this about gay people, he was saying this about Black women. And she was like, Grace, who doesn't he hate? And she was like, he hates everyone. She was like, he literally hates every people group. She was like, he hates the rich, he hates the poor, he hates white people, he hates Black people, he hates gays, he hates straight Black women. She was like, he just hates everyone. And she was like, like, that's really about him hating himself, right? She was like, I think he just hates himself so much that he literally just hates everyone too. And I was just like, I don't know, but it's just disturbing. It's so disturbing. A sign of verbal abuse that it would be hard to describe to anyone. All I could ever tell anyone was just go look at his Twitter. It was literally reading like a white supremacist Russian bot. His Twitter was it was horrible. It was horrible. Every phobia you can imagine, he was hitting on it. He sounded like uneducated redneck white dude from like Mississippi in the 1950s. It was just ridiculousness. But it was a sign to me like people aren't human to him. One of the most significant things that happened that I was so shocked by, I was working for a nonprofit organization that did like emergency heart surgeries on kids in countries where they couldn't afford it and things like that. And one of the things they did during the hurricanes of early 2018 was go down to Texas, and a bunch of people delivered water bottles. And I was telling him like that there's this little section of this part of Texas where Mexico like juts into Texas, but it's just like a little island, but it's still part of Mexico, but like all these people still live in the same neighborhood. It's just split up by an invisible border. And so because of that, they weren't getting any relief. Like they were literally like a house away from the American land, but the Americans were getting relief. And so the nonprofit that I worked for was literally delivering water bottles to them. And I was like, isn't that so amazing? Because it's like a pocket of like, it was literally like 200 people, like Mexican families on this little pocket of this land that was not getting any relief, literally, while Americans were helping other Americans all around them. And I remember him saying, that's not good. Actually his first line was,
they shouldn't do that. They shouldn't do that. Those aren't Americans.
And I was like, babe, they're humans. They're humans. And he was like,
no, they shouldn't do that. They shouldn't give them aid. It's not American land. They're aliens.
And I was like, they're humans. They're not aliens, they're humans. And I was like, what if it were you? What if it were you down there with your little baby and your wife, and you see somebody else getting help and getting water bottles, you and your family are starving? And I watched him not be able to get empathy. No matter what I did, I watched him not be able to get empathy for those people. And it was jarring, because it was one of the first times that I thought that he had a lack of empathy that could potentially be on like a psychopathic scale. Because I was like, who would want someone to die under those circumstances just because, well, anyway, I was very confused by his response, and I was very disturbed by his response. And it was one of the times where I had clarity, like not only does he not see me as a human, but he doesn't see other people who he feels like in his idea, or whatever his idea is of what humanity should be, he doesn't want to help them either. And that was really very disturbing. So let's move on. I'm going to go through the verbally abusive behaviors. So number one is withholding. Basically, withholding is doing whatever you need to do to avoid intimacy, and verbally abusers do that. And my ex was great at it. And first of all, the biggest area that he abused me right from the beginning was there were so many things that I needed to know about him that I did not know going into our relationship. That he struggled with constant flirting, that he often left women heartbroken. I think I was like the 8th woman that he left really in a state of heartache. That he had been married twice already. He told me only about one wife, but not the other. He didn't tell me the truth about the situation surrounding either of those, that I had to find out later. And then of course I didn't know that he had been flirting with another woman like a week or so after we committed to one another, and then 2 weeks after that, and then 2 different women at work, that he was still active on Match. There were so many things about him that I didn't know. I didn't really understand his misogyny. He kind of hid that from me. That is withholding. Those are things a woman should know when she's gonna marry someone. And there were ways that he hid things from me, and there are ways that I can see him doing that now with his new girlfriend. And I'm just like, okay. But anyway, as soon as we got married, like I said in the last video, he also started to withhold sex, and it became very obvious to him that that was an area that he could make me feel unbelievably pummeled, because I was just entering into my sexual peak. I was still in my sexual peak. I was like 30, 38, 39. And I just wanted it all the time. And he knew that, and he withheld it. It was a way for him to have power. Every time I asked, every time I wanted it, and he got to the point where he told me,
if you ask me again, that's the longer I'm not going to do it with you, because I'm sick of you asking.
It literally felt like the visual representation. It's like he took my face, put it in the ground, and like went like this, because he wanted me to know.
I don't desire you. I don't think you're pretty.
He also withheld compliments constantly. Even when I asked him and begged him please compliment me. I'm very vulnerable right now. I could really use your affirmation. He still didn't. Another aspect of withholding is just not telling you what's on their mind, or saying things that make you feel dumb or belittled for asking. Things like,
you wouldn't be interested anyway. Why should I tell you what I feel? You're gonna do what you want anyway. You never let me talk. Why are you complaining about this? I do talk to you. What are you even talking about? There's nothing to talk about. I said all I was gonna say to you. I said all I got to say to you. What do you want me to say?
that was something my ex said to me all the time.
What do you want me to say, Grace? What do you want me to say? What is it you want me to say? What can I say to make you happy?
Stuff like that. That's a part of how withholding manifests. Number 2 is countering. Verbal abusers see this as a great affront. It's a horrible affront for you to view things differently from them. As I mentioned in my last video, and also in the first video too, that my ex decided to take an entirely different worldview from me. Another thing about abusers is that they will often develop major worldview shifts. And that's something that I did know about going into it, because my ex had told me before we got married that he was like super black power. And before that, he was a Muslim. And before that, he had started off kind of like embracing Christian roots like a lot of black American men. He was raised Christian, but not really seriously. But he went from, when he got to college, he decided to be a Muslim. And then from being a Muslim, he decided to kind of be like pro-black everything. And then he went from that and decided to like really embrace his Christian roots again. But he was dabbling while we were together in a little bit of Buddhism. Then, of course, now he's let all of that go. From what I understand, he's not nearly as like staunch conservative, but now he's a stoic. While we were married before he did the Buddhism thing, he was talking a lot about how he just believed the world was a giant simulation, that nothing was real and no one was real. And it was at that point where I was like, I cannot even deal with this shit no more. I just remember being like, it was just, I felt, yeah, anyway. As a result of countering, after we got married, he decided to be anti-feminist. He decided to be anti-woman. He decided to be anti-black women, anti-black women's empowerment, anti-black people being empowered at all in any way. He decided to be very pro-white in disturbing ways. He decided to think differently and see the world differently in every single way that I saw it. And he countered me at every point, whether it was about the sky or women's issues or abortion or if a blanket was blue. Part of the reason why I started actually just not taking anything he said seriously is because I knew it would change the moment we were broken up, or the moment where he felt like it didn't make me feel demeaned anymore. And that's happened in a lot of ways. Number 3 is discounting. Discounting is a very painful aspect of verbal abuse. It was so hard on me because I'm someone who's always had very strong feelings, and I'm very in touch with my feelings, and it was always very easy. It's always been very easy for me to say, I feel sad, I feel angry, I feel frustrated, I feel verklempt, whatever it is, I feel strongly. And so discounting as a verbally abusive behavior is when your partner completely discounts everything you say about how you feel, or it could be anything. So here is a list of things from Patricia Evans' book that are ways that abusers use words to take power over you, to demean you, to make you feel belittled while they're discounting you. So here's what that looks like.
You are too sensitive. God damn, you're way too sensitive. You're jumping to conclusions. You cannot take a joke. You blow everything out of proportion. You're making such a big deal about nothing. You don't have a sense of humor. What's wrong with your sense of humor? You take everything too seriously. You feel too much. You just feel too damn much. Your imagination be working overtime, don't it? You don't know what you're talking about. You don't know what you're talking about. You think you know it all, don't you? You think you know it all. You always have something to complain about, don't you? Always bringing up old shit. You're not happy unless you're complaining, are you? You're really not. You take everything wrong. You're making a mountain out of a molehill. You breathe things into my words. You twist everything around, don't you? You're looking for a fight. You want to fight?
The reason why these questions and statements are so insidious and painful and confusing for the victim is because you trust your abuser, right? There's all this time has went by. Unless you're at the bitter end, you're trusting them. So when they say these things, you literally reflect on it. Is that true? And my ex said every single one of the things in this list. Often, one of the things that he liked to do is pretend that he's smarter than everyone else in the whole world. And I remember him talking about how white people and Jews have higher IQs than everyone else, and how he has a high IQ. And I remember challenging this and just being like, it's just racist as hell. And him just being like,
you don't know what you're talking about. You're not smart enough. You don't even have a high IQ.
at that point, I think I just might have chuckled because I was so like, this man is getting ridiculous with this. But when he started talking about the IQ thing, which he talked about a lot to explain everything, every ill in society is because the whites and the Jews are smarter than everyone else because of their IQ. Number 5 is blocking and diverting, and that is basically when the abuser gets to decide all of the interpersonal communication. So everything from what can be discussed and what can't be discussed, how often it's discussed, how long it's discussed, when a conversation is over and when it's not over. And he can refuse to finish a conflict by blocking a conversation and by diverting a conversation. But one of the ways that my ex did this that I literally just mentioned was when we first got married, and I was like, when are you gonna move in? You know, how's it going? How's your search going? And he would literally be mad at me about it, and he would say,
I'll tell you when I'm looking for a job. I'll tell you. You don't need to ask me every day.
Which I wasn't. Of course I wouldn't, because who would want to be verbally abused for asking? So I would pick times, and it would be very rare, and yet the question itself was an offense to him because I was his dream girl, and as a dream girl I should have known and been able to read his mind about how his job search is going. So let me give you a few statements that exemplify blocking and diverting.
You're just trying to have the last word. You know what I meant. You think you know it all, don't you? You heard me. I shouldn't have to repeat myself, and I'm not going to repeat myself because you weren't listening. Don't talk over me. Do not speak over me. I don't see where this is going, so I'm done. I'm done talking about it. I'm done. I'm out. Quit giving me flack, man. Get off my back. Just drop it. Just leave it alone. Just drop it. Why do you always have to be right? You always got to be right. Just stop talking. Did anybody ask you? Where did you get a stupid ass idea like that? Who asked you for your opinion? Just quit bitching at me about everything.
Those things all block interpersonal communication. They all make a person feel demeaned and belittled. They all make you question your motives and your sense of self. They all make you wonder why your partner doesn't like you. And that's what all that did for me. Now, diverting is where he just wouldn't answer questions. And this is something that happened quite a lot because if you saw my other videos, he was a pathological liar and lied to me about everything. And when I found out that he had taken another woman on a date, he could never answer the question, where were you that night? What happened? Why did this happen? You know, I had legitimate things like, why does it say that you spent money on a movie ticket at 7:45, but you're telling me you never went to the movies? And he could divert, and never actually answer that question. Here's some examples of diverting.
Why are you so worried about it? I'm here with you now. There's no way I'm gonna let you go through my phone trying to figure stuff out. I've explained this all to you once before, and I'm not gonna do it again. Do I account for where you are all the time? Do I account for your time spent and where your phone is? Just drop it, because I don't need this. Maybe this is all just too complicated for you to understand.
That was the way he handled the situation with this time when he took this other woman out on a date for 5 months. He treated me like that for 5 months every time I asked. Then for another 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 months after I found out the truth and I was sad about it, or when I would question other behaviors because I didn't trust him anymore. And it became an utterly ridiculous time of life because he went out on one date with a woman. It seems like they went to the movies and nothing else happened, but he lied and lied and lied through blocking and diverting. Number 6 is accusing and blaming. This is a really hard one to deal with because feeling of being accused of something I didn't do or don't feel is extraordinarily exasperating for me. I don't know if it is for other people, but for me it's like one of the worst things that I have identified that I can feel in my life. And I just don't like feeling misunderstood. I hate when someone accuses me of something that I haven't done, and that's been a real hard thing for me, being a really very public blogger that I once was, and now having a book out there and now doing this YouTube channel. It's hard for me when people assign me motives. But that is what verbal abusers do, or it is a verbally abusive behavior. Basically, in a verbally abusive relationship, the abuser will often tell you that it's your fault for their anger, that it's your fault for their irritation, that it's your fault that they're demeaning you or belittling you. In general, in my relationship with my ex, I felt blamed for his anger. I felt blamed for his infidelity. I felt blamed for finding things out. I found out some horrible news about him that I'm not even going to share in this context at all, ever. But it was horrible. Felt blamed by him and his flying monkeys for finding out. And a verbal abuser shows no mercy. They'll attack you in any way they can. There's even ways where I feel like I got blamed for his insecurity that led to him being abusive to me, that led to him feeling regretful, that led to him feeling sad. But that's my fault because now he feels so sad and so regretful. It really is very mind-bending, and I wanted to say to him, do you see that you're doing that still? Do you see that you're literally still blaming me for your problems? What am I supposed to do now because you're feeling regret? I'm not responding appropriately because you're feeling regret and you're feeling sad, so I'm supposed to, what? I didn't say any of this to him, but that's kind of where we're at now. Some of the common phrases associated with accusing and blaming are,
you always have to have the last word. You're just trying to pick a fight, always looking for trouble. You're attacking me. Don't attack me. I can't have you attacking me. I have had it with your attacks.
Actually, just the other day, my ex and I got into an argument last week, and he said, he actually said to me, he said, if you're going to be, I think my battery's about to die. Let me stop and start reeling. He actually said to me, if you're going to dehumanize, defame, and demean me, I will not talk to you anymore. This was by text, and literally all I had said in the text was like a paragraph, here is how you harmed me. The next paragraph was, here are the ways that you harmed me. And the next paragraph was, here's how I feel about the harm that you caused me. And I didn't use any attacking words. It was a very calm day. I remember feeling hurt, and I told him that I was still angry at him. And I said, here's how you harm me, and here are the ways, and I'm angry about this. And then he wrote back that he was not going to be dehumanized. And because I have read this book, because I am now not nearly as trauma bonded to him, because time has passed, because healing has happened, I was able to identify that right away. And I actually literally told him, like, the behavior that you experienced as a child, the assault that you experienced as a child was dehumanizing. The behavior that you inflicted upon me, the ways that you abused me, verbally and otherwise, was dehumanizing. And I wish that you knew what it felt like to be dehumanized by me, because if that were the case, you would never accuse me of what you've just accused me of, because I have never dehumanized you a day in your life. And it was just a very interesting verbal abuse tactic that I don't think he was aware of, that it was literally him accusing me of doing the things that he has done to me and expecting me to accept that, because now he's sad about it. And if I don't accept that he's sad about it, then something's wrong with me. It just becomes very difficult, even now, as time goes on, to accept how hard it is and how much I need to be unaware and very alert. But I did let him know in certain terms, you're lying. You're lying to yourself, and you're lying to me if you believe that I am dehumanizing you. I am not. Number 7 is judging and criticizing. My partner did this a lot through jokes. Using jokes as a way to criticize is very common for verbal abusers. What verbal abusers do is they'll joke about it and about something, and they will try to press on your insecurities and use it as a way to have power over you so that they can bring it up again and again to get you upset if that's what they want. And again, this is on a subconscious level, but the cruelty of it is extraordinarily painful, especially because it can be something very, very, very vulnerable for you, and then to have someone you love making a joke about it, it's so painful, y'all. It's so painful. So here's a few statements for judging and criticizing category of verbal abuse.
The trouble with you is,
and it could be anything. It could be that you have a degree. It could be, he could say something to me like,
the trouble with you is you got your degree and now you think you all that.
Now I'm just using that as an example. He never said that to me because he has multiple degrees, so he's not anti-education. But like, that's just an example of things he said to me. Like,
you think you know so much now because you've read so many books?
Anyway, he did use a lot of you statements.
Like, you're never satisfied, you're crazy, you can't take a joke, you always gotta be so sensitive.
And things like that. I remember that one of the things he used to say to me in the end, which was just crazy, he said to me a lot like,
you just want to take on this identity as an abuse victim. You just want to always be a victim.
He really emphasized quite a bit that was my identity that I wanted. I wanted to have this identity of victimhood, like all the other black people. They were obvious you statements. They were obvious confabulation. It was obvious judgment. It was obvious criticism. It's very interesting to get that feedback from the abuser, who really shouldn't have any say about how the victim is trying to work out who they are post-abuse. And actually at that point it wasn't even post-abuse. I don't even think that was when we were actually living together and we were actually still trying to make it work, and it was a very painful aspect for me because the more he said that, the more I felt like dug down into like, how can I even begin to heal when my abuser doesn't even really take seriously my claims of abuse and how it's affected me. Another way that verbal abusers use judgment and criticism is by saying things that you think if it were said by someone in a nice way, but the way they say it is so judgmental, they think they're being nice, but they're not. He would always come up behind me.
You should have done it like this. You should have did it like that. I told you how to do it. I told you so.
Oh my God. He used to say that to me all the time. And about things that he never said. Like, for example, spreading peanut butter. You should spread the peanut butter before the jelly. Like if I said like, dang, I should have put my peanut butter on first. He'd be like, I told you so. There was something that happened like that one time with food, and I was just like, you've literally never told me that. You've literally never said that to me ever.
Yes, I did.
You don't remember? That's gaslighting. He did that in a lot of ways when it dealt with our cars, anything that dealt with our cars.
I told you, you should have done it this way.
You know, it was just this whole, like, I'm a man, so I own both the cars kind of thing, which really wasn't true, but he just used it as a way of verbally abusing me essentially about everything. Number 8 is trivializing. That is when the abuser basically trivializes anything and everything that could be important to you, and it can be very, very, very insidious. It can be done in front of other people in ways that only you know from their tone or their demeanor or their candor that they are trivializing you. So it can be a very hidden but effective, painful way of being verbally abused. For me, it was very difficult for him to constantly trivialize the plight of Black women, especially during the time frame. There was a lot more awareness, like BLM was really starting to take shape during that time, and I was really starting to pay attention to and read more things by Black women, especially femmes. I wanted to understand more of the Black woman's perspective, and the way that he trivialized it can be one of the most painful aspects of verbal abuse, because it's like saying, here is this thing that you are super passionate about or that you love or that you're trying to learn, and I'm gonna make it seem like it's just insignificant shit, and like you are just insignificant shit for being interested in or thinking about it. And so it felt so much more painful to me when he trivialized things that were about Black womanhood in general, because it's just always something I've loved, but also like it was a deeply painful time in our nation for Black women and Black trans women, and he just trivialized all of it and criticized all of it constantly, and it was just so painful, y'all. Number 9 is undermining. Sorry for the drop in quality. My battery just died and I do not have a replacement battery for my actual camera, so now I have moved to my phone because I really want to finish this today. Undermining tends to be the verbally abusive action that really makes you feel a very low self-esteem. Again, like you're not a human, that you have nothing to add. If he undermines you about your career or your ability to do things or your ability to, let's say for a woman who can't have a baby, if her abusive partner is constantly bringing that up, he's undermining her very sense of identity, an assault and attack on how things should work. If your esteem is low, it got to a place where my self-esteem was so low that anything and everything he did about my body or about anyone else hurt me so much more. Like for example, I mentioned he stopped complimenting me because he knew I wanted it so much and I was desperate for it, and I felt ugly, I felt unwanted, I felt undesirable. He literally never wanted to touch me for like an entire year. He just didn't touch me sexually or non-sexually, or hug me or hold me at night or initiate kissing me or anything or compliment me. And so in the end, I saw he put up a post he put up an Instagram post, like this was the very end, like while we were still living together but trying to be separated, we just couldn't afford it yet. He put up an Instagram post and it was like pictures of 3 beautiful Black women that he had edited, because he's a graphic designer, that he edited really beautifully, and then he put like, we gotta support our Black sisters or something like that. And I remember calling him and just crying because I was so overly sensitive to everything that had to do with anything in his affirmation, and I was just like, I literally begged you for years to affirm and support my Black womanhood, and or to find me pretty, or to even act like you find me pretty, and now you're posting this picture of other women. I remember him getting really angry at me. He was incredibly cruel to me about it, and basically told me I was making too big of a deal and something was wrong with me and I need help. You know, in hindsight now that wouldn't bother me, but then it was like almost like a direct jab. But it was a way that he was continuously undermining. Basically, undermining tries to dampen your enthusiasm about something. So if I was like, I'm really excited because my post is going up on this blog today, this is my guest post, and he'd be like,
Yeah, that's really nice. That's really cool.
You know, and not like an appropriate response to really good news. And I found that in a lot of ways it was hard. It was very difficult for him to celebrate me. And you know, when I would tell my friends, they'd be like, oh, he's just jealous, or he can't tolerate you being better at something than him. And I just had a feeling like, no, it's not that. He's not jealous. It's not that. It didn't feel like that. I didn't know what it was. I didn't know it was undermining. But another way that verbal abusers, or just abusers in general, do the undermining behavior is through sabotage. So like actually sabotaging things that you are doing well, sabotaging your money, or could be anything, your parenting, anything. That wasn't something that I feel like I got from him on a regular basis, but I do know that that's how it happens. 11 is threatening. Threatening is one of the saddest saddest parts, I keep saying that just because they're all sad, but when I was with my ex, he threatened to leave me probably about 15 or 16 times in the first year, and I was pregnant for almost the entire first year of our marriage. I didn't have a job. I didn't have anywhere else to go. I have no family support in that way. I can't go live with my mom. There's no one in my family who would take me in. And one of the things that I was most excited about marrying him, when I thought he actually loved me and when I thought that he actually wanted to be with me, was that he would be supportive and I would always have him. And that's why I felt safe enough to try for a baby with him, even though I was 39 years old and I was going to give birth at almost 40. And when he started threatening to leave me right away, I didn't know if he was serious. It came to find out that it was all just only threats. Always only threats. But when he first started doing it, it rocked the bedrock of the foundation of trust that I had with him, and it made me feel paranoid pretty much at all times that I might do something that would finally make him go insane with rage and leave me. It's a very sad place to be. Number 11 is name calling, and this is the simplest one because we all know what that is. It's the overt way. Most verbal abuse is covert. That's why I like to emphasize that verbal abuse is so much more than name calling. If they use a term of endearment with sarcasm, everything about verbal abuse can be insidious. And one way this can be insidious is through the use of an almost compliment, but not really a compliment, but not really name calling. So when I was on my way to my 40th birthday party, I felt really cute. Like, we literally went out. I got a really cute outfit. I spent a lot of time on my makeup. I spent a lot of time on my hair. I got this really cute red wig. When I came out, he didn't say anything. Like, when I came out of the bathroom, he didn't say anything, and I was hoping he'd be like, damn, you look sexy, or you look good, or just something. But of course he didn't say anything. And then on the way there, I was starting to feel kind of sad about it because I asked him if he'd got the balloons. I asked him to get like a big 4 and a big 0 for my 40th birthday, and he didn't. He was like,
Oh, I forgot.
and I was just like, okay. And I was starting to feel sad, and so then I just said to him, like, why didn't you compliment me or comment or say anything like, you look nice tonight, babe? You know, just because I'd already been asking him so much. And he said he was driving and he didn't even look at me. He was looking straight ahead. And he
was like, well, you look like something.
And he didn't really understand that that was not a good thing to say. And I was just, I started crying, and I was trying to wipe my tears, and I didn't say anything because I didn't know what to say to that or help him understand at that point, you know, like, that's not a nice thing to say to someone. And then I just like sniffled and cried the rest of the way there. And then we were about to get to the car. He's like,
look, you know, you look nice. Okay, you look nice.
And I was just like, okay, thanks. You know, there was no point in bringing it up. But then later on in the evening at the party, everybody went around and said nice things about me. Like, hey, here's how I met Grace. Here's these nice things. And so there was, like, you know, a good 20-25 people going around, and he was the last person. When it came to him, I was so excited because I was like, I'm finally gonna get to hear nice things from him. He'll finally affirm me in public. And he was just like,
I'm good.
My friend Tia, who was over it, who was like guiding everybody around, she went to hand him the microphone, and he was just like, I'm good. And I looked at him, and I kind of had like tears welling up, and she looked at me, and she was looking like, what's the problem? And it was just like that awkward moment. And then I just said, actually, I'll say something about my last year. And I just kind of like dissolved the awkwardness of that moment. But that was in a covert way of withholding. Number 12 is forgetting. So I just talked about the example where he forgot to get me balloons for my 40th birthday, a very small request. It wasn't that we couldn't afford it, but he used forgetting as a tactic for a lot of things. Forgetting whole conversations we had, forgetting meaningful things to me. He forgot things that it just didn't seem like it made sense that he forgot. I think later, once I read this book and realized a lot of things, I realized, oh, this is a lot about me not being a full human to him. And so it was easy just to not have me on his mind or things that I wanted or needed on his mind. I'm not saying that there was never anything he did for me. I'm not saying that at all. He took care of us in different ways, but there were some real significant ways that he forgot things that he should have remembered. Number 13 is ordering. A verbal abuser will often use snippy, snappy, bossy, I'm gonna order you around. So here's a few examples.
Here, get rid of this. Hey, get in here and clean this up. Get this off of here. You're not wearing that. Shut that off. We're doing this right now.
This wasn't something I experienced a whole lot of, but I did know that there is an expectation of, like, he wanted to do something, we were gonna do what he wanted to do. If I wanted to do something, we might do what I want to do, but I definitely felt like if he was like,
Grace, come here right now,
that I had to go. I didn't ever not go if he ordered me, or if he ordered me to do something, I did it. 14 is denial. Denial is not just a river in the middle. Okay, forget it. I'm obviously going to joke. Okay, so denial is one of the most insidious forms of verbal abuse because it denies the victim their sense of reality. And as you can imagine, lying is a part of denial. The pathological lying is what destroyed me in so many ways and altered my sense of reality. Denial can also happen on a regular basis. So imagine someone saying to you on a regular basis,
I never said that. You're just making it up. You're making it all up. We never had that conversation. We never had that conversation. You were getting upset about nothing. I don't know where you got that from. You are crazy. You gotta be kidding me, man. You gotta be kidding me.
Those are all examples of denial, and those are all things that my ex said to me all the time. Literally. All the time, y'all. Patricia Evans adds here in the Verbally Abusive book is that you come to a place of healing when you realize he did say that. I haven't made anything up. We did have this conversation. My experience is real. I really am upset about something legitimate. I am not crazy, and I have enough self-esteem to keep pushing for that. Those are two very different mindsets from where I am now. Like if he tried to pull something like that on me now, and where I was, we were in the thick of this, I had no knowledge or ability to say anything like that. I would trust his perspective, and then I would try to push back, but it would be so difficult to that I literally couldn't win. I'm gonna stop here, but for my next video, I'm gonna talk about abusive anger, and there is a good chunk of this book that deals with abusive anger and how that plays out in verbally abusive relationships. But I can say for sure that abusive anger is a huge way that I experienced verbal abuse and a huge reason why I developed complex PTSD, because my adrenaline was always on. It was just my stress levels were always high, and that's what fucks up your nervous system, and that's what gets you to a point where your body starts breaking down because you are afraid all the time, and it's usually because of someone being an anger addict. And I do believe my ex is an anger addict, and I do believe that that deeply, heavily played into why his verbal abuse towards me was so severe. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate you. If you would like to do a one-on-one, an hourly one-on-one with me via email or via FaceTime or Zoom, please email me at outheretrynasurvive@gmail.com. Again, I am not a counselor nor a licensed psychologist or therapist, but I am a survivor. And please sign up for my newsletter. I'm really trying to grow my newsletter right now and just do fun things with it and make it value-based, but also fun, and also updates and everything else. So please sign up for my newsletter. You'll also be informed about when I open up a course in a private community for Black women who are trying to heal and survive through and post verbal abuse. And finally, get my book, Grace Actually, which is stories of faith, love, loss, and Black womanhood. And I love y'all, and I hope you're having a great day, and I hope this helped you. And if it did help you, please let me know in the comments. And also don't forget to check out my mental health check-in vlogs that I'm trying to do every so often. And I hope and pray y'all have a wonderful day, and I'll see you soon.